Just because God's looking after you does not mean stuff's going to be easy. That's kind of the message of today. Yeah, God will take care of you, but that does not mean a smooth path, and it almost never means you get your way. It doesn't work that way. So I'm standing here by Green Creek, right in danger of falling in if I take 2 steps that way, because this is where the road washed down on Fenner Road, and it's a long way down. I haven't actually been down here before to look at this. It's kind of exciting, but I was looking for a creek. Looking for a little piece of a creek. We've got a bigger creek near us, but this is more cozy. And there's a story here about a cozy creek where God sustained Elijah. You're at the Takeout. I'm Jeremy Williams. I'm the pastor at Community United Methodist Church in North Muskegon, Michigan. That's communitychurchumc.org. I'm glad you are here. Thanks for stopping in. We want to welcome you and remind you that we are indeed worshiping in person, 10 o'clock Sunday mornings in the sanctuary. And though on a day like today, I can understand a church that might say, let's meet outside. It's beautiful. We just can't count on it all the time on Sunday. So here I am by Green Creek. But that's not the creek in the story. So I'm going to read out of the book of 1 Kings, because I'm telling a story about Elijah, and this is the very first story about Elijah. It's his introduction. And you don't get much introduction. You get a story about when he's born. You don't get a story about angels saying things, and you don't get a story about who his parents were or anything. You just get Elijah, which means, I suppose, he was just a regular guy. And we don't know enough about him. We don't know what he did for a living before he became a full-time fugitive from the king of Israel. So, here we go. Elijah from Tishbe, which is like Elijah from a place we can't find. It's not a big anything. And it's not only in a small village, probably. He's also from a village within the poorest, most out of the way little piece of Israel. It's on the wrong side of the Jordan. It's way east, and you wouldn't want to say that's where I'm from. That area is called Gilead. So here we go. Elijah from Tishbe, who was one of the settlers in Gilead, kind of telling you, Gilead was not properly settled. It was not civilized yet. It wasn't anything. Said to Ahab, wondering who he was? Not the sea captain who wanted to go get Moby Dick, in case you're big on Herman Melville. Ahab, the really bad king who's married to that famous bad queen, Jezebel. So, Ahab is the one he says something to, and here's what he says. As sure as the Lord lives, Israel's God, the one I serve, there will be no dew or rain these years unless I say so. He just claimed for himself, Mr. Nobody from nowhere, there's going to be a drought, and it's going to be a famine, and I'm the one who says when it's over. It turns out he's right. It turns out this happens. It turns out there's a drought, and it goes badly for everybody. So what this means is that immediately he is Ahab's enemy and Ahab's least favorite dude. And as Ahab's least favorite dude, he is immediately assuming they'll be after me to kill me. And so Then the Lord's word came to Elijah. Go from here, turn east, hide by the Cherith brook that faces the Jordan River. The Cherith brook actually runs through mountains. A nasty, deserty, rocky place, and it's only a little bit of a brook. It's seasonal and it goes away half the time. And so this would have looked like, the Jordan River by comparison. The Jordan River was never a big river, probably not much bigger than Green Creek is the other direction toward Muskegon Lake, but never mind that. Go hide there. But here's what happens. Hide by the Cherith brook that faces the Jordan River. You can drink from the brook. I've also ordered the ravens to provide for you there. That's weird. I mean, there are birds here. I just saw some pretty cool birds fly by. One that I didn't recognize that I've got to go home and look up. But I don't really want ravens bringing me my dinner. You know what I mean? Because if ravens are bringing me my dinner, it's probably roadkill. It's not great. And they're going to be bringing me my meat and bread. Now, do you suppose that because it was Elijah, because it's God's prophet talking, that therefore God's going to arrange it so they are bringing ribeye steaks and bread from Marat's Bakery? No, I don't think so. It's not going to go that way, because the fact of the matter is, and this is kind of what I want to say, like I said at the beginning, God sustains, but that doesn't mean that God makes it all nice for you. And the weird place of a prophet is that the prophet, in this case Elijah, is in the middle of where all the suffering is happening. The prophet isn't exempt. Jeremiah gets thrown down a well. Ezekiel has to do what God says, has to crawl in and out of a hole he made in the side of his house, and to make some prophetic point, to eat things that are disgusting. And Hosea has to marry a prostitute, and it goes on and on. The list of unfortunate things that the prophets have to do. So that's what he does. He goes down to the Cherith brook, and there ravens feed him. Here, let me read it to you. Elijah went and did just what the Lord said. He doesn't get a pass on suffering. He doesn't get a pass on drought. We don't know how long he was there. Jesus was 40 days in the wilderness. Maybe he was there 40 days. Sort of symbolic amount of time for a time of suffering, a time of hardship. Maybe that's it. But this drought does go on for years, and there's another story about how he survives it coming right after this in verse 8 and going on. But I'm only reading you the first little bit of this, just to think about the brook and going down by the brook, and how the Lord sustains us not by making everything easy. The Lord doesn't sustain us, with a permanent endowment. The Lord doesn't sustain any of us that way, by saying everything will be easy for you from now on. No. Right now, I'm giving you just enough. Right now, I'm making it so you can scrape by, so you can live, so I can employ you later to say my word when I need my word said again. And I'll only just look after you. And I'm not going to make you privileged. So being God's guy, being God's messenger in the world, being God's servant, remains being a servant, being not privileged by being a follower of God, but really sharing in the same suffering as everyone else, and God using you. Hopefully that using isn't feeling like abusing. But here he's taken care of just enough. He went and did just what the Lord said. He stayed by the Cherith brook that faced the Jordan River. The ravens brought bread and meat. In the mornings and evenings he drank from the Cherith brook. After a while, the brook dried up because there was no rain in the land. That is the end of this little chapter. Not the whole chapter 17, but it's the end of this story. The end of the story is that, well, we have to go on to a different kind of sustaining. This sustaining is over. Pastors in the United Methodist Church go from place to place, from one thing to another. And in every place, we kind of have to say to ourselves, the Lord is going to take care of me here. And the Lord's going to look after what I need here. The Lord doesn't always make it easy for us. No matter how faithful we want to try to be, that doesn't mean the Lord is going to make it easy or cushy or luxurious for us. And I got to say, I feel like I've kind of got it cushy in North Muskegon. It's such a nice community to live in, and we have so many things going our way. And yet, we all face struggles, and we all face difficulties, and we all have things that we have to live through. And then the next chapter begins. In my life, the next chapter involves, well, is already turning pages now, now I need to start spending more time looking after Tamara and watching my wife decline in health. And many of you have been in a chapter like that in your own life. That's hard. It's really hard. And yet, it is the next chapter, and God will sustain. God will look after. God will care for you. God will continue to treasure you, and will continue to use you, and will continue to prepare you for what's next, what's ahead. The Lord doesn't give up on us all that easy. So praise God for that. Praise God that we are not quit on. I want you to know that as your life goes through some struggles and changes that everyone's life goes through, the Lord continues to be with you. The Lord continues to sustain you. And sometimes that sustaining is not the sustaining we want. It's not easy. It's not simple. It's not guaranteed. It is just what it is. But the Lord is sustaining us. Next week, Elijah's going to take care of God's going to take care of Elijah a little different way. And that also is going to feel strange. It's going to feel like living on the edge, like only just. And yet, continue to be faithful. And yet, carry on and follow where the Lord leads. The Lord may not use you like Elijah. You may not become one of the greatest of the prophets of Israel. That's okay. The Lord will sustain. And now the Lord will sustain us beyond this life. And we see that if the Lord is not choosing to keep me in this green, water-laden world that we're in right now, the Lord will take us to another life that is forever. The Lord will sustain. May God be with you and look after you. And may you keep following. Go in peace.